taking it?
I'll take it if it works. If I feel that the doctors have all gotten their opinions behind it, and they think, you know what it is like an mRNA vaccine, this new vaccine. It makes your body think that it doesn't introduce actual COVID into your system and you fight it off. It makes your body think that it's COVID, and your body builds the proper proteins to fight it off.
Oh, that's interesting.
The guy explained it to us yesterday, Nicholas Christakis. He's from Yale.
He's a soybean boy.
Thinks,
he likes soybean.
No, he doesn't. He's a good man. He thinks
he's a soybean boy.
He's a great man, and I won't let you disparage him like that.
No, I'm not disparaging him. He's certain niggas is soybean, motherfucker. He's soybean.
He's a doctor.
Okay, Dr. Soybean.
Anyway, he thinks the vaccine will be very effective, and even if it doesn't keep you from getting it, it'll prevent or hopefully prevent you from getting a bad case of it. I don't know though.
So what would you need? Would you need just the consensus of a body of doctors you trust
and people's experiences? Because people have already taken it. So if people have taken it, like, what is the experience? They say that they, had they felt like shit for a few days. That's it. Now, is that true? I mean, who are they? Have you talked to them? What's a few days? And what do you mean by feel like shit? Like, did you try running 4 days later and you still felt terrible? Like.
So wait, apparently they're distributing this vaccine almost now, right?
I don't think it's totally ready, but it very soon will be ready. And if it's effective, they're going to encourage people to take it. It makes people real nervous.
They're going to have it for like doctors and like essential people at the beginning of it.
First. And then it's going to probably people that are high risk, like older
but the
folks.
thing is, it's going to have people have a sense of like there is something that could be done now. Like it's a sense of hope. It's a sense of progress. It's a sense of like, it was at one time when we didn't even have a thought of a vaccine. Now we got competitors and shit. So people to think different.
Listen, if it works, we should take it. But I know how people get real nervous
Black
about that
people
kind
don't
of shit.
fuck with vaccines. I told you that, son.
How do you feel about
Dave,
it?
black people don't fuck with no vaccines, Dave.
Well, I mean, I feel like it's inconclusive because your caveat was, I'd take it if I felt safe about it.
Yeah.
Well, that's just the thing.
Don't you feel like that same way?
Well, of course. But so now, for the first time we're learning how the process of a drug, going through trials. We're learning this literally as a nation. We're all watching this thing take place.
And an accelerated version of it.
Because
usually a vaccine takes multiple years to develop.
Yeah.
So this is really quick. To be able to have something this quick and turn it around. And
it's like those movies
effective.
where they find a cure by the end and you're like, oh, that's bullshit. They're doing it.
Well,
not a cure, but a vaccine. It's a big deal.
The good thing is, if another one comes around, they're going to be more prepared to do something like this quicker.
Right.
I think people needed to really understand that in our lifetime, something can kill the world's economy and kill hundreds of thousands of people here and 1 million people worldwide.
I think everybody understood
I think we knew it, but I don't think we really expected it.
Right.
No, they knew it.
So, yay. I could finally do the thing. Time for humanity talk. This is it. So, a joke that kind of ran around, not in my head, but in my community, in my circles, around the time of, let me put it in perspective for you, like Combat Arms, Guns the Duel, Maple Story, Fly for Fun. If you remember that era of gaming, I think the Game Boy Advance SP was still relevant, but I think we had moved into like the DS and the PSP around that era of time. This was definitely PlayStation 2-ish. I'm bringing this up for a purpose. The tricky part about world-ending events is that everybody said, it could happen. But we felt like, as a society, with the invention of the internet, that there was going to be enough around, enough for us to understand, enough for us to see when it comes to like movies, media, end of the world stories, disasters. We would never act like the people from before because we have the power of hindsight. We know what happened before. So if it ever happened again, like, we would have that shit shut down instantly. And what's crazy to me is not that... What's crazy to me about when it comes to the process in which we got here is that enough people were able to ignore the past and act like this was something new. If we had treated this like, we'll do the exact same thing we did in the past, but we'll ignore all the negatives and we'll just go with the science. We'll just go with the general consensus of what's happening in society, what's happening across the world, and we'll take that into account in our personal day-to-day decisions. This would have been a very easy thing to combat. When it comes to the idea of we knew it could happen, but nobody was going to think about it, what we really did is we kind of played out our worst fears, and we refused to take personal responsibility because it wasn't close enough to us. I've always said this before, and I'll say it again. If this virus was killing more people, if this virus had like every 9 in 10 people who get it die, people would take it seriously because it threatens your self-ability to understand. How could something like that happen? The fact that people are recovering from it is what's causing people to be like, it's not that bad, because it doesn't outright kill you. Just like a lot of things on this earth don't outright kill you, but we still fear them more. See, it's a tricky... Oh, God, I'm sorry, guys. I hate doing it, but you know I got to do it. It's a tricky paradigm where you have to think on both self-responsibility and responsibility of the world. You might not die, but someone close to you will. So I always suggest this to people who deny this or say, oh, it's not that bad or it's not even happening. Do me a favor. Get your family members, put them in a room. I'm going to grab a Desert Eagle, and it has to be a Desert Eagle because I want you to hear the kickback. Pick one of these family members to die. If you can't make that decision in 5 seconds flat, don't talk to me about COVID. Because what you're telling me is you're willing to play Russian roulette on the off chance that somebody survives the bullet. Why let me into the house with the DE anyway?
The Obama administration had prepared for precisely that eventuality.
Sure. But I mean us.
Of course, yeah. We couldn't wrap our mind around it.
Even if they told you, even if you watched Bill Gates' speech at TED Talk in 2015, you would never internalize it and think there's a pandemic coming. Now we know.
Nobody.
Now we know there is. Now we're going to want to invest in the medical infrastructure to make sure that they prepare better next.
No, we're not. No, we're not. I mean, if we get better leadership, absolutely we're going to say, all right, let's put this in place so that way if this ever happens in the next 50 to 100 years, we're ready, set to go. But what's going to happen in the short term is we're going to try to push past this so fast to get things started back up again so people don't think about it as much. And when people don't think about it as much, there's no push for an actual funding of infrastructure. The first thing that's going to happen when things go back to normal is schools are going to get defunded again. Watch. Just quote me on this stream in 2 years' time when I'm still here on Twitch, and I'm going to tell you, the first thing you're going to see that's going to cause outrage when things go back to normal is schools are going to get defunded again. Oh, I left the chat, sorry.
Next time, hopefully people are going to learn from this.
Oh, yeah, 100%. People know
glass half full.
Nothing is going to be new. There's nothing going to be new about it.
No.
Well, the debate is largely philosophical, right? I mean, to this end, there's two schools of thought. One school of thought is it's just going to be what it's going to be, and you got to keep moving. Like, why close anything? And the other school of thought, which I thought was, this is more than just a philosophy. It was a science.
Right.
Remember, the premise when they locked us up was we have to wait to catch up to our medical infrastructure. Yeah. So we don't overburden our medical infrastructure. We got to suppress the disease till we can build up the infrastructure. And they gave us an early estimate of 2 weeks. This is how a comedian does. When a comedian's doing a real long set, he goes, one more thing before I go. And then he does that 4 or 5 times, and you realize, this guy's going to do another hour.
Oh, yeah, that's so fucking rude.
Yeah, but you know that trick? Yeah. That's what the pandemic, the quarantine felt like. 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks. Maybe we'll open bars and, that kind of shit.
But there's no way to control it other than create it yourself, right?
What do you mean?
Like the whole vibe of the scene, right?
The vibe of which scene?
The pandemic. You said, how do we get used to it? What can we do about it?
Well, he's also saying, here's the thing. We never signed up to let people tell us that we can and can't take risks or go to work. And by saying that if you do it, you're going to kill other people, that's what changed the game.
Right.
And so everybody has to figure out how much of that they're willing to accept and how much of that are they not, and whether or not they're willing to take a shot, take this vaccine without knowing the long-term effects of it. or worrying about the long-term effects of it. And some people are naturally averse to taking any kind of medication. They don't want to do it. And other people are like, if you tell me it's good and all the doctors agree and that it'll help mankind, I'll fucking do it. That's how I feel. Listen, polio, okay? Shit doesn't exist anymore. Smallpox doesn't exist anymore, at least not in the numbers that it used to,
Yeah,
right?
but you got the old vaccine for that. That's old vaccine.
Because of vaccines. Like, the idea that vaccines have done bad things only, or that they're dangerous only, it's crazy. Like, vaccines are responsible for the giant population.
It's not
of people.
vaccines, but I think at the core of this is you just trust.
Yes.
Do you trust these sources? And people realize that they're at the mercy of someone that they don't necessarily trust.
Right.
I think it's less, and I shouldn't say less. I think it's that, but I think it's more they're being exposed to shit that they never had to figure out before. They've never had to know who's pushing a vaccine. They never had to know which corporations or which firms. They never had to care. So now that weight is on people's heads, normal people's heads, to say, what's going on, what's out in the world, what's existing, what's here, what's there, who's giving me the right answer, who's giving me the wrong answer, what am I meant to think, how am I meant to flow through the point of my day, knowing now that there are multiple entities that control different portions of my life that I never had exposure to. They want to own more responsibility for their own choices than to just give it up, which is dumb. And why it's dumb? Because it's already been that way. Most of what most well-off people have is because of the exploitation of that knowledge. The fact that it's opening up to more people now should mean more accountability. And that accountability comes with a bit of skepticism. Because I've never heard of this company before. I've never heard of the vaccine being rushed in time. Because it never was a problem before. It never was a thing before. So when we start talking about it in empirical sense, that's why I like the title of this video. It's philosophical. Am I ready to accept that there are more players at work here that affect my day-to-day life than I wanted to be aware of in the beginning? Are there more things in play here that affect my mental and physical well-being that I wasn't even aware of? It goes back to the issue of climate change. It goes back to the issues of personal self-worth. It goes back to the issues of systemic racism. It goes back to the issues of socioeconomic barriers. Oh, now I know who these people are who are affecting this. Oh, I know now. I know now who's in charge of this, that, and the other. And now I know that I can't even get to scream at them unless it's on Twitter. So what real choice do I have? It's starting to whittle away at the idea of free will in the general consensus of what ability I have to move upwards in society or stay where I'm at. And when it comes to the pandemic, I really wish people would think about it in a form of, if something goes wrong, we know who to hold accountable and we know how to get them to answer for their crimes. We don't have that because we're locked in right now. But when things start turning normal, you expect a fucking revolution. Or expect super complacency because we all survived it together. We stuck through it together. We're the people who made it through, and we will live on forever. Today is Independence Day. Or whatever the fuck happens.
Well, maybe that's the problem.
Don't touch your own face and don't go outside. I'll tell you when to come out. Love a renowned liar.
Yeah, right.
It's a tough one. That was a tough one. Especially here, it goes touches something really sore in the core of an American's identity. Like you said, how can you tell me to do this?
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. This was a tough one here.
It's a weird one. It makes us redefine what it is to be a person. You know, like if all of a sudden you have other people that got elected into a position of power. That's all they did. They won a popularity contest, and they're dictating whether things go this way or that way. And they don't necessarily have the right answer. They just have their own answer. And Dallas is doing it different than this town. And, Washington State's doing it different than Nevada. Everyone's doing it different.
But everybody's trying to do it also.
Yeah, but governors can tell you what you can and can't do. It gets real weird. And
Governors cannot tell you what you can and cannot do. They can institute public health measures that lead to that decision. See, the trick is in how you phrase that. Because what we end up here is, yet again, a paradigm of thought. a change in the idea that I didn't know governors could do that. They never had to. They never had to. They're not infringing on your rights. They're actually exercising their power for once. Because, oh shit, I'm not just going to let a virus rage wild and then have everybody in my state fall victim to it, leave the state, and go spread it elsewhere. Like, there's levels to this thought.
Get it. They're trying to keep the hospital numbers down, but you told us it was going to be 2 weeks. Like, you guys said 2 weeks, and now here we are, like 9 months later, and everyone's just waiting only for a vaccine.
I'm not speaking about, if it's right, if it's wrong. I'm not speaking about it like that. I'm just saying whatever it was, that was very difficult.
Yeah.
That was very difficult.
Very difficult.
I was fine, but not knowing when you can work, not being able to move around, not being able to see my mother. You would never thought. If someone had told me 11 months ago, even the night before, the last night we went to where we were in Milwaukee.
Yes, it was Paps.
The last show, it was the last night between shows, right? It's a 2-show night. And the energy had changed. It went from festive to like, people looked worried when I got off stage. And Tom Hanks had it, the one NBA guy who had touched everything and had it. And then the horn starts ringing that they're going to shut the country down. I literally go, that's impossible. What are you going to shut down the world? It's impossible. This is what I thought, my initial reaction. But the energy changed. Now I go out and do the second show, and immediately, and I wasn't even thinking about this shit earlier that night. I come out on stage, everybody reach their hand, hey, and I thought about it. Okay, I start, shaking people's hands.
Oh, worried.
But yeah, it was
yeah.
The day before, wouldn't have even been concerned about it. Went into the green room for 40 minutes and talked to people who've been glued to the television watching the news, and then they scared the shit out of me. My behavior changed almost instantly. It was interesting. I don't want to get too heavy. I mean, I'm only hanging out for a minute.
Man, no such thing.
It's not too heavy. That's exactly how I felt about it, too. I remember I shook a dude's hand on a flight. I was flying to Vegas for the fights. It was like one of the last fights before they shut it down. And some dude goes, I don't know, you want to shake hands? I go, I'll shake your hand. And we shook hands. He had a mask on already. And I was like...
So, personal story now. Sorry, guys. Personal story now. Whoa. Going back. Flip. There we go. Personal story. So, I was a teacher. I am a teacher. And when COVID hit, as a matter of fact, I'll leave this up because I want you to get especially for the VOD, I want the frame of reference to exist. So in a personal story, what ended up happening for me is when I was teaching, we started hearing like rumors about this coronavirus, like this COVID thing in China. And a lot of the kids that I work with, they're fucking middle schoolers. They didn't take it serious. They didn't take it serious at all. And what ended up happening is a lot of them made like really shitty jokes about it. Where sometimes they would like cough in your face, or they would like cough out into other people, or they would like lick their hand and like try to touch people. And they really thought of it as a joke. Now, obviously their lives changed enough from that date that they don't think of it as a joke anymore. But I remember the second meeting I had with my job, because I only worked there 2 days a week. I was working somewhere else the other 3 days. And I remember the second meeting that we had, and I remember this guy, Lawrence. He was like fed up with management because it was like, yo, like, I'm not trying to take a risk. And I remember when like he was pacing back and forth, wondering if he had it, wondering if anybody in the building had it. I remember that instant energy change. I remember that like ridiculous amount of fear that went into everybody going into that school days in and days out. There were no masks being worn. There was no like care about that at the time. There was just we'll keep an ear out. We hear that they might be shutting down schools. We'll let you know like what's going on. But I remember everyone's general mood was shifting into, oh, we have to take this serious. Like, we have to make sure the kids don't make fun of it. We have to make sure that, like, things aren't going to go wrong here. We have to make sure that things aren't going to go, like... And it really, really, really really changed the dynamic of how we even approach teaching. I remember kids started getting pulled out of my class. Kids were like leaving school early, and I'm just like, well, it don't matter because your kid go and get it anyway. I ended up finding out that a few parents of certain kids died. So it's like at the end of the day, there was really a philosophical question of, do you even care? And, you know, for the sake of it, now that I'm gone from that job, I can say management didn't give a shit. They was wondering how the funding was going to roll. Oh, my job's in jeopardy. I could lose the fund. And everybody who was safe from or immune from losing their job because they needed them, they ended up keeping their fucking job. So what the fuck difference did it make? But everybody else got let go. So, like, corporations don't care about you. Keep that in mind.
Wow. He was ready to go down. I think this was the very beginning of March.
This was the first time I had been tested in any capacity was when I did your show that time. That was the first time I had an antibody test or anything.
I would have never expected that here we would be deep into November, and we're all still kind of locked down.
When this started, you lived in L.A. You had no plans to come here.
Yeah, you're in Texas.
Think about it. Your whole
Yeah.
life has changed. What's interesting about this time was another thing we should talk about.
What up,
next time,
Josh?
is that in mass, it feels like we're rewriting our social contracts. You know, the whole thing. And COVID is an accelerant on this process that I could have never imagined.
Yeah.
You know, they're locked inside, man. People are stuck in a house with their choices.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is about that time. It is 1:40 on the stream. Probably a little bit different on the lockdown below, but I must tell you, it literally costs nothing to help me fill the critical function overload button by making sure that you hit the follow button. If I can fill the critical, remember we started at 0. And in just 8 days, we're able to fill up 68%. If you hit the follow button, you might meet my other persona. And that man knows more about humanity than I could ever put into an 8-hour stream. So help fill out the button by letting your friends know to hit the follow button. Help me reach my goals. And if you do so, you might get the prize at the end. And when I hit affiliate, it literally costs nothing to subscribe with your Twitch Prime or a Tier 1 subscription for $5. If you'd like an uninterrupted ad-free experience, what you're currently getting now, be grateful that you're here before the ads start rolling in.
Do you like your house? Do you like who you're with? Do you like these things you've accumulated? I hope you like them because you're stuck with them. I make great choices. I like my choices. You know, when I was faced with it like that, I was like, whew, I had it much better than many people. But imagining people doing that in mass, it's pretty powerful. It's a pretty powerful thought. What does this do to a society? This type of isolation
And almost forced reflection.
yeah, which is not necessarily a bad thing.
Right. And we've always talked about how life is a rat race, right? People get stuck in this rat race. It feels never ending. It's not good that all these people lost their jobs. It's not good that all these people are going to lose where they live.
Sweating.
Not at all.
It might help some people recognize that if you just keep going in this rat race, it never ends. You got to figure out a way out, and now is a better time to figure out a way out than ever.
Thank
because
you.
You kind of have to. You kind of have to, and society as it existed 10 months ago, it's not the same
It's
place.
not the same. And you
What's
should
the country?
understand that.
What's the country that there's a country, maybe somewhere in South Pacific or something, that measures their success as a nation with what they call their gross national happiness. Just a totally different premise.
What country's that?
I can't remember. Maybe you Google gross national happiness.
Jamie will figure it out.
Thanks, fingers.
We're going to do that. The government of Bhutan. Wow. Sustainable and equitable socioeconomic development, environmental conservation, preservation, and promotion of culture, and good governance. Yo, I'm not even being funny. Did I not just speak about that quite literally 20 minutes ago? If you have empathy in your politics, you literally tear apart the line between foundation of money and how much is involved in all those hands that touch politicians and the betterment of your people. And you need to run you need to run it like that. You cannot run it in a way that speaks on the volumes of how much money people are making. Oh, the stock market will literally be the greatest thing that we have ever seen in the history of this country. Like, fuck the stock market. Put the money in people's hands. Put the money in people's hands now. Eliminate all doubt. Because if you put money in people's hands in a capitalist society, they either create or they spend. They don't hoard. The reason that billionaires are a problem in this nation is because they hoard. Let them spend. Billionaires could come out right now and buy out all the grocery stores on like the strip between 125th Street and literally South Street in Manhattan. And you know who would suffer from that? The people who would have to wait for restocks. The people who would have to wait for basically just restocks. But people benefit from that because then the poor people who are already running that get a boost in their money. I could pay rent now. Oh, I could go do this. I could buy this for the store. Or I can make it a better experience. Now that I've got such an overflow of money, I could I could put an arcade machine back into place, which makes more people want to go inside, which increases their income, which increases the amount of availability for people to enjoy themselves in their neighborhood. You're fucking kidding me. If that's not the way we should be running politics, if that's not the way it should be running government, maybe I'm fucking stupid. Call me out if I'm fucking stupid. But, this is not a hard situation.
This is Bhutan.
There it is, Bhutan.
Oh,
There you go.
yeah,
This is a real principle. It's a philosophy guides the government. Think about this. This is a philosophy that guides the government of Bhutan. It includes an index which is used to measure the collective happiness. This is the metric that they use to define their success.
If they tried that in America, they turn it into an app and it would fuck up everything.
Yo,
my God.
People would just be striving to win the points on the app. It would make people insane. They'd get addicted to trying to be a better person.
But this is a vastly better metric. I'm not, a communist and all that shit, but I think that I know too many people who are very wealthy who have what I consider a poor quality of life.
Yeah.
Just because, like you say, the wealth is the point.
The wealth
They
is the
chased it.
point.
They chased it.
And they didn't have any friends.
Right, you're
Didn't
very
have loved
wealthy.
ones.
You're hunting. You love your dog. Your dog hangs out with you like fucking Scooby-Doo. Your kids like you. You're living an adventure of a life. Now you're doing the same thing you were doing in LA in a totally different city just because you're following that gnawing feeling, I gotta be free.
Episodes of the Joe Rogan Experience.